ABC Amba TV, and we will be having our beloved brother and elderly statesman, Barrister Timothy, who will be talking to us on our Amba history. Just listen to this piece of music again, and the barrister will be right here in the studios to bring you what you have not known and what you need to know. Remember, we have told you and we are telling you that our Amba history is out to educate you, tell you what you didn't know, is out to warn you, is out to correct you. And when you get the correction and get into the right perspective, I am telling you the difference will be clear. We are going in to talk with Barrister Timothy, but I want to let you know that Jesus reigns. Reverend, please, can you give us that piece?
I see your light shining in my darkness. Jesus is King, Jesus is Lord. Yeah, yeah,
Thank you very much for being very brief to us and giving us the time in the studios. It's exactly 5:00 in Ambazonia. That's 5 p.m. in Ambazonia. And we are inviting all of you out there in Ambazonia to please invite your friends, your relatives to come in and hear what will provoke you to stand up for your land. I've heard and I've seen people who have fought and have died leaving the inheritance to the right people because they fought. And so this is a time for Ambazonia to listen to their history before you know what you are fighting for. 25 gun salutes to all the people at home front, because whether armed or not, La Republic is not sparing you. It means that you are a fighter. And Barrister is in the house. He will say a word of greetings to all of you, and then from there we will take up and do the necessary. Barrister, you are welcome into the studios of ABC Amba TV, the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, and on our program, our Amba history. The microphone is yours.
Thank you once more. I'm back here again on Amba history. I wish all the viewers, all the listeners, all the participants will learn something that they did not know. I wish all of us will, based on what we know, that we did not know, be for a better future. That's a sense of history. Because as we move along, we falter. And we don't know why we falter and how we faltered. Until we correct the past, then shall we lay a better foundation for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barrister, as usual. I'm so excited, and I'm very sure that the people of Ambazonia are also very excited because you have fulfilled your word. If we had 5, 10 people like this in Ambazonia, of which we have many of them too, who will keep to their words, I think that we would have been closest more than where we are right now. Not people that will come and say one thing today, tomorrow they change and say another thing. All right, Barrister, we want to continue from where we stopped. Last week, you gave us a wonderful narrative, and there was a point you mentioned that I have been contemplating on it, and I will want the barrister in your usual way, because in fact somebody called me and said that barrister is an archive. I say yes, these are the kind of Ambazonians that we need, and we'll want to ask barrister some personal questions today. I'm sure barrister will be ready to tell us, like Barrister Fool talk to us. We want it's not comparison though, but we just want the Amazonian people to see and to know the caliber of people that have been brought up with the DNA of former British Southern Cameroons, West Cameroon, now Ambazonia. Barrister, the personal question I want to ask you is not actually very personal. It is also a public question. Did you ever work as a government worker or whatever, had a duty in the former British Southern Cameroons? And if yes, tell us a little bit. And immediately you tell us that, we want to go over to the next question, which is the same, but with a different geographical location for your job. Over to you, Barrister.
Uh, Thank you. I think all the time we've talked, we've never made some self-introduction. But that's an interesting question. And then it's good for people to know. I talking here. I think I have some wonderful experience in the thing called Cameroon, starting from Southern Cameroons, or West Cameroon in short, to the Republic of Cameroon and to the Ambazonia. This is how it started. For the record, I was a teacher. I was trained as a teacher. I was second batch of the teachers trained under the Frontier government. That they wanted to produce grade 2 teachers for their primary schools, and they introduced what they call a 5-year continuous course. Until then, to become a grade 2 teacher was impossible. You had to go to St. Charles in Nigeria. The Frontiers went there. So they realized that the basic need for a teacher in the primary school at all levels was not grade 3, it was not grade 1, it was grade 2. And so Frontier fast forwarded the training of teachers. They introduced what they called a 5-year continuous course, which I was the second batch. It started in 1966. We were the second batch from 1967. And yesterday, someone was talking about education, I said, this is a joke. That course took us to what the West Cameroon government was trying to set as a basis for their schools. And so I happened to have gone there. I trained in St. Paul's Teachers Training College, Bujongo, for 5 years. And then came out as a teacher. At that time, in fact, the West Cameroon government had decided not to run schools. All their schools were run under what they call voluntary agencies. The voluntary agencies included the mission schools, Baptist, Catholic, Presbyterian. They were all voluntary. Even council schools were all voluntary, because every council had to run its own schools. And so the government had to subsidize them to do it. I happened to be one. But my life was short-lived, because I also happened to be in the transition. When we produced the second batch in 1972, that's when the coup d'etat came, and we all fell apart. West Cameroon ceased to exist. Those teacher training colleges were closed. And so there was no West Cameroon government to employ us. And so we fell in the rocks. Some of us, among the few that were selected to be kept by the mission then, I was one of them. And I was selected to teach. I taught in Moyuka. My stay in Moyuka was short-lived. I went and taught in Chang College. That's why when I saw this passionate banner of the church in Chang, I felt bad because I lived in that town. From there again was so short-lived. I said, I'm a generational guy. I transitioned to East Cameroon. I remembered A-levels very shortly after that. I transitioned to East Cameroon. And my first job as a teacher in East Cameroon was in the far north, in Yagua. I was there when late Christian Tume came there as the first bishop. And I didn't stay there long. I came down to here one day. I taught in CBA, the Bilingual Grammar School. That was not enough. I ended up in a Bolivar. That was not enough. I graduated while I was in Uganda. I enrolled in the university. So I graduated then with a law degree in 1982, June 1982, and decided to practice law. Practice of law was not simple in those days. You needed a presidential decree to go and do the training. You needed a presidential decree to practice the law itself. And so we had to go through all that turbulence. But while waiting for that, I said I'm a very transitional guy. I was one of the few. In 1982, this unemployment thing had become viral in Cameroon there. The Cameroon under under Ahijo, before Paul Biya came to power, had launched a 1,500 recruitment of graduates who were looking for jobs. And I happened to be one of those who were recruited there in that 1,500. I just graduated from university. And I was posted to the Ministry of Mines, not the Ministry of Town Planning, call it. I was there for a very
But you
short
were trained
time.
as a teacher.
Yes, I was a teacher all this time. So
Okay.
while I was in the ministry, my dossier was going through for me to become a lawyer. I was there for a few months, and then my degree came out, so I left to go and practice. And then I started practice December 1983 in Boya, and I lived in Boya. That's a parcours through which I have passed. So I seem to know a lot of this history, having participated in it. In 1961, 60, when they were making the campaign for the plebiscite, I had a brother, an uncle who was a teacher. He was a grade 2 teacher, grade 3 teacher even. He was going around on foot. They were going around campaigning, go join East Cameroon and so on. I was carrying his bag. I was not young, but I was a school child. So I was able to carry his bag. I knew what they were talking about. And so in 1972, I've said this before, when this thing came, this so-called referendum, they had campaigned on the referendum that we had to vote yes or no. We were in a boarding school. And so on the 20th of May, when we went out to vote, they didn't give us the black. I was a very radical guy. I told the people at the Bojungo customary court, our polling station, give us the blacks or we will not vote. The trial was threatening them, and they were so angry, and they threatened to lock me up. And they were locking me up, actually. Then one of the students ran to the campus and told the principal, they are locking up this man. The man said, what is the problem? He came there and asked, why are you locking this guy up? He said, well, he's disturbing. They asked me, why are you disturbing them? I said, no, I didn't disturb. I simply asked for the black. No students like radical friends. They're all waiting there cheering at me because I was defying the authority. So the principal turned around and said, well, if you don't give them the black, they have right not to vote. So you're going to lock him up. And that was the end of it and the beginning of our demise in 1972, May 20th, 1972. So that's my practical experience of May 20th. As a teacher who were training, there was a subject called West Cameroon Education Policy. We did it as a subject in class. That propounded what West Cameroon government was trying to set up in their own schools, what they were intending to do, that we were going to teach the children for. And so I have that handbook right here. So I know what education West Cameroon was trying to show. I was taught that as a subject. I have the document that that stated what they really wanted to do. And so, in summary, that's the basis of where we are. Thank you very much. I don't know where I've missed something, but I think I've given you this basic summary.
Wow. Thank you very much, Barrister. You know, you made a statement the last program that there are some of this, there's some part of this history that is verbal, and there is part of the history that is documented. And some of what you are saying interlocks with documented and verbal. Yeah. Fortunately, you have crossed over to talk about your working experience in West Cameroon and tossing to and fro also in East Cameroon. And 1972, when our demise came, you were right there in the middle. I will not bother you again to ask the second private question, which was not actually private, but which was the same. Of course, you have answered it. Now let's cross over to the real thing. In the last episode, you made a statement that the idea of a government that came up in Nigeria, and Ayub Tabe took it up with his team, and they launched the interim government. That it was a very bright idea and a wonderful idea, and of course, I concorded that it was a God ordained idea. Can you expatiate to the people of Ambazonia why the government idea for the people of Ambazonia is better than the individuals that were fighting, and better than the groups that were fighting, and the individuals and the groups that are still fighting today, so that we can make these people to understand what the world actually is looking for from Ambazonia.
I said so, and I'm still saying so. You see, from my experience as a teacher, when you teach at the end of the lesson or during the lesson, children put up their hands to ask questions. The more hands are up, the more you know that they're interested. They're understanding what you're saying. That's why they have questions to ask for clarifications. And so the idea of a government asset was the best. Why? Because they were trying to restore institutions that were lost unconsciously and consciously. Again, because people ask questions. After the last episode, people have asked me a few questions, in fact, many questions. And so I've decided to title this episode today, Matters Arising. This is matters arising from the last episode, which will make us understand very, very well. And that will lead us to understanding why the idea of a government in Nigeria by the Fourth Conclave was probably the best option we had, that we still have now. And so I call this one Matters Arising. You see, in our last episode, I said that in 1959, we're not independent. East Cameroon was not independent. But between 1960 and 1961, there was a lot of talking going on between the Funchal delegation and the Ahiju delegation. The same thing was going on between the Northern Cameroon and the Nigerian government. And so we have to know what they were discussing and what they were not discussing. I said here that they could not have been joining because the two parties, that is the Funchal delegation or West Cameroonians and Ahiju delegation, East Cameroonians, were not on the same page. They were talking about two different things. If they are talking about two different things, there's absolutely no way we can agree. Again, I said, Funchal was talking about unification. Ahiju was talking about reunification. Not just Ahiju, his whole delegation, because that's how Francophones even till today talk about reunification. And this is very evident to the last minute of the thing. And what happened? The last day of this issue was 1st October 1961, that this thing was supposed to take effect. On 1st October 1961, early in the morning, two speeches were made. Funchal made a speech, and Ahiju, the supposed president of the Federal Republic of Cameroon, made another speech. And when you look at those two speeches, you see this divergence, this complete distinction between the East and West Cameroon, between unification and reunification that failed. And if you permit me, I will just quote something from there. This is what Ahiju said in his very first sentence. After more than 40 years of separation, we are today setting up again one family, one nation, one state. May this happy day be a day of joy to all Cameroonians who believe in their country, who love their fatherland. In less than 2 years, they have achieved the two essential objectives which they set for themselves. And what are the two objectives, he writes? Independence and reunification. That's in his first paragraph of his sentence. That's Mr. Ahiju. I don't need to bother you. I will go further. And he ended it how? This last sentence he said, men and women of Cameroon, the year one of the independence and unification of Cameroon and reunified Cameroon opens today unto a future which we shall build together. That's how Ahijo concluded his reunification speech. And what did Foncha say? Foncha, in his very first paragraph, first sentence in his own speech, this is what Foncha said. Cameroonians today, Southern Cameroon is free. Unification is achieved. Not reunification. Unification is achieved. That's Foncha in his own first statement. So you see the
Yeah.
distinction now between what Foncha was thinking and what Ahijo was saying. And then he went further in another paragraph, say, Cameroonians, the story of unification will be incomplete without the mention of the part played by United Nations. So the story of unification,
Right.
not reunification. And so you find that these people were talking two different things. They spoke two different things. There's no way we could ever say that we have unified because you are marrying A, thinking that you are marrying B. You are buying a goat, thinking that you are buying a pig. And so these two people, these two delegations were the same. They were speaking two different languages. And that's why I explained this before. In Fumban, the purported Fumban, they did not even agree. Foncha came to talk about the Foncha delegation, including Ndele and others, but they came to talk about unification. The Ahijo came to talk about reunification. And so they left Fumban. August. September, Paul Biya comes out, Ahijo comes out with his so-called federal constitution without the consent of the Southern Cameroon delegation. There was no consent there. And so, as I said last week, they came out with this document they produced and called Federal Constitution. It is written there, Federal Constitution, this document here. I said last week, this is what they sold as a federal constitution, even without the consent of British Southern Cameroons. Was this indeed a federal constitution? I said now, there's nothing federation in this document. And I went further to explain, why is there no federal, why? How do I come to this conclusion? A federal constitution should provide what authority the federal government provides. It doesn't. The federal constitution doesn't need to tell you what the federated states do. They make their own constitutions. But this document called the Federal Constitution, in Article 5 and 6, assumed all the powers that can exist in a country or in a state. Everything was put for the federal government, including the right to tax, including what we even call today our justice system, where a common law. They assumed it. And so what was left for the federated states? Nothing. And this can be seen in Article 38. After taking all the powers, what did they say in Article 38 of this federal constitution? Article 38 stated this. With your permission, any subject not listed in 5 and 6 above, any subject not listed there, and whose regulation is not specifically entrusted by this constitution to the federal government, shall be of the exclusive jurisdiction of the federated states. Anything, they are taking everything and say, okay, go look around. If there's something we forgot, you can take that. So what power did this constitution confer on the federated states? Nothing. Go sit home, look at that document. If you forgot to talk about a chair, okay, you can assume that. If you forgot to talk about a table, you can assume that. So those are the powers conferred to the so-called federated states in this document, Article 38. So what does it mean? And then they went further. in Article 39 of this so-called constitution and stated, the prime minister of each federated state shall be nominated by the president of the Federal Republic of Cameroon. The president of federal will appoint the president, the prime ministers of the states, and then you call yourself a federation. That's curious. And then he went further because the prime minister had ministers called secretaries of state. Article 40, Article 38, 39 BC. The Secretary of State, the state 39, it stated that the secretaries of state, the state ministers, shall be appointed by the president. So what a federation that you have there, your federated state, the president is appointing the prime minister, the president is appointing the state secretaries or the state ministers. So was there a federation? Nothing. Everything devolved on the president, the federal president, whom they purported to put there. And so for that reason, I've described this so-called federal constitution, not a federal constitution. It was a national constitution, not a federal constitution. It was purely a national constitution. And then it went further to state Article 40. Article 40 said that the legislation of the federated states, they define what they will define how they will be composed. I don't know how they came, but you said Southern Cameroon will have 37 and East Cameroon will have 100. How did they tell us how many people will sit in the parliament? So this was the president doing it. And then, of course, he goes further to say that transitional arrangement, while waiting for the whole thing to take over, right? The duration defined in Article 5 and 6 passed without more to the federal government. Those powers they assume. But they knew that they are not the institution. They went further and said, okay, look, while we're waiting for these institutions to be set up to take over everything, you can continue to exercise them. But the day we do it, your authority is over. And so where is the federation in the so-called federal constitution? Other than the dictatorship of the proletariat. And so there was no federation in the first place. Let us understand this very, very well. They were duped from day one. They were not even having anything in common. And that's why, again, to your question, why do we think that the setting up of the government in Nigeria was the best thing we did? We have known that in Southern Cameroon, there was a government of Foncha, there was a government of Ndele, there was a government of Jua. These were because of elections. There was an election that left Ndele a defeated candidate, and Foncha took over. When Foncha was going to Yaoundé, because as per this constitution, he could not be a president, a vice president, and at the same time,
Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister. When he was going over to Yaoundé in 1964, I think, at LSR, this government in Southern Cameroon was a parliamentary system. The party that won the majority seats in the assembly formed the government. That's how Joao became a member of the government, the prime minister. He was appointed by the CPDM, by the KNDP. But before his appointment, this was 1964, when Foncha was leaving to Yaoundé, Ahidjo thought he could, because in this federal constitution, as I've told you, it had been stated that the prime minister shall be appointed by the president. Foncha came down. Ahidjo came down to Boya. In 1964 to install Muna. Based on this his constitution. But he met with resistance. The KNDP said, now, this is a parliamentary thing. If Foncha is leaving, it is the KNDP that will recruit somebody to replace him. That's how Jua got the job. And again, the last known elections in West Cameroon or in Southern Cameroon was 1959. That's when we had the Funcha government. Once 1961 came, the idea of organizing elections was stopped. That was
Wow.
from 1959 to 1972, there was no more election. That's the last government we had of Jua. That was there by election. When Funcha left and the KNDP resisted Ahijo's attempt to put Mona there, what did they do? They went back and reconstituted and came back in 1967. Dismissed Jua, dismissed Funcha, put Mona there as the prime minister, and at the same time, as the vice president, which against their own constitution, which has said the vice president cannot be at the same time the prime minister. They came back and dismissed Jua under this so-called constitution, installed Mona, who now assumed the two functions. The function of Prime Minister of West Cameroon, appointed by Yaoundé without any parliament, and the function of Vice President, put by him. Because they never had any election, I said this before, they never had any constitution until 1960, February. They never had any election, purported election, until 1964. The 1960 constitution only conferred, created a parliament, which reappointed Ahijo as the president. So the first time he went to the ballot, not even to the popular ballot, was to the ballot through the parliament, the assembly. And so this man comes back now and installs Mona. And so the era of parliamentary rule was over. Mona now had to appoint his secretaries of state, as instructed by Yaoundé. He said, okay, make this list. He made them. And also them, my late man, Mr. B.T. Beforotia, who had lost all elections in West Cameroon and escaped to Nigeria to learn law. The Nigeria-Biafran war had ended. He came back with his small whatever thing he has stored there as law. And under this appointment of Mona, they saved under Mona. He was first Secretary of State in the Prime Minister's office, Secretary of State for Public Service, and also on and so forth. By direct appointment, not by winning any elections. The 1959 elections in West Cameroon, Mr. BTB Fortier, may so rest in peace, had contested the election and had less than 10 votes, less than 1% of the votes in his own constituency. And so, back to your question, the reinstatement of a government as foreseen and as proclaimed to be the last US government means more than just the government. It means the institutions that were in place until Jua was kicked out. Jua was, I told you how Jua got there. He was institutionally put there because this party had won the majority seats, 14 out of 26 parliamentary seats in West Cameroon House of Assembly. And so that's why that thing is important.
Okay.
So all the promises that Funcha made, after that, after the first two speeches, early in the morning, Ahijo left. And Funcha convened a joint House of Assembly and the House of Chiefs and delivered another speech the same day, October 1st, 1961. What was in this speech? Funcha was giving the hopes, the bright future that will come, how the country will be very, very good, how security will be there. He had not realized that he has lost all his security. In last week or the week before, I talked about the police. The security we had was the police. It was under the West Cameroon government. The new constitution took away the police from him. The police went to the federal government. Even if he was to maintain the police, he was not raising money anymore. Could not raise money. So how will you maintain the police force?
Okay. Barrister, before you continue, let me interrupt you here. Don't lose, don't lose your flow of thought, because we will have to come back to that answer. There is a question here that is the Ambazonian people want to understand, and the question is just a matter of definition. What is the meaning of reunification and unification according to the speeches of the two gentlemen during the time they were planning to come as a federation? Over to you.
Yes, the meaning is very, very profound and has a lot of consequences. A reunification simply means that we're going back to the fold, which is exemplified by the reunification monument in Yaoundé. For example, you go back to the fold as it's going on. You have a complaint, you're complaining about something. The answer is always the same. The people in the east have the same problem. People in the north have the same problem. You cannot complain about, for example, this crisis started in 2016 because of teachers and because of lawyers. They were common law lawyers. But what did they hear? What was the response? Because it was reunification, the teachers in the north have the same problem. The teachers in the east have the same problem. That is why when the crisis started, what did they do? The government took the first action. We will employ 1,000 teachers. Our problem was not the number of teachers. Our problem was the type of education that they were giving. What has the government done? We would not even send our civil lawyers there. We would create an ENAM bench. No. In ENAM, we'll create a bench for the common law or whatever nonsense they call it there. That is not the issue. If you have been unification, our own institutions should have remained intact. Like you have in Quebec, in Canada. The Quebecois speak French. They have their own assembly that regulates what is the essence of an assembly. An assembly evolves. They pass laws as the country evolves. If there's no assembly, how do you regulate those things? If you had been unification, our Ministry of Education would have had no reason to go to Yaoundé. We would never have had the time to be questioning, to be asking for an examination board. But they took everything to Yaoundé, absorbed it, and in order for us to just organize examinations, we needed the permission of Yaoundé to give us an examination board. If it had been unification, as contemplated by Frontier, we would not have had the opportunity, the time to go Yaoundé begging for a university. We would have created our own university in the way we wanted. And let me use this opportunity to say, yesterday I heard somebody was talking about somebody on a certain video talking about education. Now, talking about Cass Bambili in 1962, early 1962, just a few months after the so-called unification. The Frontier government had contemplated opening a university for us. That was Cass was open. Cass was not even open in Bambili. It was open in Kumba. It was only a two-circle thing to train people getting ready to go to university. So that this idea of creating their own university, as early 1962, there are two ideas: to create a university, and they were without one university to create. They wanted to create a university. People suggested they should open a technical university. Their first idea was to create a technical university in Amba. Amba was the first technical college in the whole Cameroon. And equipment was brought there. That was in 1962. When Ahijo discovered that these people were trying to do this, he simply stopped Frontier's government. Until they were opening a federal university in Yaoundé, and they opened a federal university in Yaoundé in the same year, 1962. So there's the difference. If we had a unification, we would have had institutions in place. We would have dealt with our own courts. In this document, They took away all the justice department, all the judiciary, except customary courts. It's put there in article 10. So what would do customary courts? They absorb the magistrates, absorb the registrars to become federal personnel. The federation was essentially a French thing. So how would an Anglophone magistrate? They even go to something they call Cour Supreme. What would you do there? Of 9, you are 2/3 of you there. Speaking English has no meaning. So that's the distinction. I wonder if I made it clear.
Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to last time you talked about the French, that is France, with their little intelligence and what we have noticed with La République du Cameroon, divide and rule, or divide and conquer, or divide and destroy. And that's how they have systematically destroyed institutions that were coming up in that republic to make changes. And you said last week that most of the people who have stood fighting for this, our struggle to get our homeland, were fighting as individuals. But today, I was listening to an audio from a meeting of some of the Coopers and the Spoilers and the Blacklegs. And somebody was saying that they have 23 groups and that these groups should come together, not with any name, but they should come together and form a one gigantic group. And they specifically mentioned that the Kondengi group is inclusive in the 23. I did not hear them mention our interim government as a group, which was good, but they are still trying to fight as a group. What advice can you tell these people concerning the plan of La République du Cameroon? Because when I listened to them, they had very good intentions. But the only thing that I think they are missing out is the secret behind a government which you know very well and which you can help these people to understand that that is where La République will not be able to defeat Ambazonia. Can you emphasize on that about the issue of a government and how it does go?
Last week I said that the greatest nightmare that Yaoundé and France have ever faced in this so-called unification, reunification, the greatest nightmare that they faced since 1972 was the idea of a government. That's their greatest fear. And that's why I explained. Within a month after the formation of, in fact, we have been groups there. Mr. Fongalan for have been living here in Bamenda. He have been going up and down. Nobody cared about him. Dinka and the rest were all there. Scapo, they were all there. They didn't care. But this idea of a government went to the central control of their own intelligence. And so they said they had to decapitate it. Because the idea of a government, if we transform ourselves and call it any other name, fine, it'll be great for them. Because they will say, well, yeah, call it Group A. Choyaba is also Group B. Akwanga is Group C. Akombara, Akoro, Akoromba, Akoro is Group D. And so they will to do it the way they want. The problem that we have going on now, it has not ended, not because Yaoundé is not talking. Huh? Yaoundé had the Grand National Dialogue. There were so many Anglophones there, call them Anglophones. Christian Toomey, Agwombala, Fondiba, Fontem, I don't know where they were there. All of them were there. But they were the choice of Yaoundé. They talk to the people who want to talk. That's why there was this thing which had been going on social media a few days ago. that Mr. Paul Biya said when the diplomats came to give him New Year wishes. He said, well, I want to dialogue and negotiate. People were putting emphasis on that. That is bullshit. You have to look at the content, the context under which he was saying that. He said that there's not about that. But he's telling this story to the diplomats. Telling them know that he's in control. He is trying to negotiate with the people that he wants. In fact, at the New Year, that is the second speech Paul Biya makes. He makes a national address to the nation, that is to his people. And he tells them, I'm not negotiating, we're winning. We will eliminate the terrorists. That's the message to the nation. Then he comes to the diplomats who are urging him to settle this thing, to go to the table. He say, look, I'm going to negotiate, I'm negotiating. What will you call Grand National Dialogue? It was negotiation. What do you call CD in Toronto? It was negotiation. The issue is not that he is not negotiating. No, he is negotiating with the wrong people. So these people urging people to form one group. No, they are just wrong. I think the people who are forming the groups are the ones that I should blame most. The problem is people don't know what they are capable of doing. If you knew what you are capable of doing and put your best effort in doing that, we would be able to do something. But you must acknowledge that the fact that you can write from 1 to 10, the other man can write from 1 to 50. That does not make you a leader in your own right. And let me land by giving this example. We are so far of Mr. bARR. Someone can send this thing to him. He can communicate, just like Bohebed. That's your best tool. That does not necessarily make you the leader. Come to the leadership, we should all agree is the best option we have. Communicate there, bring your own ideas there, and we'll constitute one team, not many groups. We'll constitute one team under the frightful name, under the name that frightens Yaoundé, called interim government. We will go sit negotiate with all your ideas that you have in your small groups. But all those small ideas, big ideas, will constitute only one delegation. That delegation must not be led only by Cho Ayaba, must not be led only by bARR or whoever. So just saying that people should do this, should do that, now, that is just a misunderstanding of what is going on. The greatest difficulty we have is that among us, we don't have the seasoned diplomats that look at things far away. We underestimate the strength of Yaoundé, which is a government being supported by other countries around the world, the French, the Israelis, and other countries and other powers. Not just being supported. All these countries, the United States, Russia, China, they all have embassies in Yaoundé. So we cannot compare our diplomacy with theirs. No. So whoever is suggesting that they should just go and form the group, no, they should be asking them to come to the fold. If all of us came together under the IG, I've said this before, Sisi Ayok Tabi was not born to be the president of the IG. He had served his term. President Sako is not born to be the president of the IG. He will serve his term. But let us agree that the IG is the best way forward. We will get there if we want to put new leaders, if we want to do anything, we can do it constitutionally, provided that we follow the constitution. I'm not sure that if we had amended the constitution and provided for elections and organized the real elections, and Mr. Sako went there and did not win, he would not be claiming victory he did not own. And so, just saying that they should do this, I think I said this last week. People in Yaoundé, these Kondongi people and many others, I see them there, I see them all the time, they are making prayers like you do here. They should know that in the world of prayers, people play their roles. Jesus Christ was there only for 3 years in his whole teaching. And he left. The mission did not end. I remember somewhere in the Bible when they killed Jesus Christ, people came and said, well, this man was meant to be the savior of Israel. People have killed this man. What shall we do? They were crying. So the killing of Christ just 3 years after did not end the spread of Christianity. The Saul, who became Paul, became the best preacher. He's the most important person who spread Christianity. But how did he get there? He came there as a prosecutor to hunt down whoever was talking Christianity. So again, to your question, groups will not help us. And if our
Thank you.
brothers in different groups had known this, they would have realized that that's a dangerous path to take. Akwanga has negotiated this thing as Akwanga. He has made a ceasefire. He told us, I'm not inventing it, he made an audio that he had been negotiating with Bankwe in Ghana, that he had called off a ceasefire by his own group. That is more than 2 years today. It has not worked. What does Akwanga think that he must go to Canada to make some peace? He has gotten to his own limits. Mr. Koro, you realize that all these things don't work. You were in prison, you were in Nigeria, you were everywhere. It does not work. You don't go and revive a dead consortium to want to be relevant. No. Niba Fontem, yes, we appreciate you. You people carry the torchlight. Let the demonstrations. That brought us to this point. You're not bound to be on board again. You have played your own role. That's what it is all about. I'm sitting here, I'm not sure I'll be here tomorrow, but I've delivered my own role as a historian. What I know, if I were to die today, some person will take off and say, well, we heard this story, and then they will continue. I'm not saying this because Foncha taught me. I was a small child. So let us know our roles. You are not bound to be the leader. That's just wrong.
Okay,
Someone else,
barrister.
if you want to be a leader, you must agree someone else will lead you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This transports me to ask a question in another realm. But before I ask this question, you know that today we have a lot of fraternities and a lot of entities that are actually spiritually embedded. Some years ago, it was a taboo to hear anything about the secrecy of the Amok Society, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, the Satanic Church, and all that. But today, everything is in the open, and is found in the social media. Now, do you think, or do you, I don't know, what do you think will be the hindrance to these Ambazonians who have not, I will not want to understand that the idea of a government to fight with a government, and not only a government that is a new government, but a restoration of an old government that the oppressor tried to scrape out, to make it completely lost. And suddenly it is brought back to the limelight. What do you think is the biggest hindrance for the people of Ambazonia, that is the Ambazonian people who are fighting for this cause, to adhere and not be able to constitute themselves and do like you have just said? You have this contribution. It does not necessarily mean that you must be the leader. What do you think is the major thing behind the craving of these our people? And all of them at different points are shouting, our people are dying, our people are dying, our people are dying. But to do the necessary, they are not willing to actually carry out this necessary that they're supposed to do. So, what do you think should be maybe not the whole thing, but the nucleus? What is the thing that is actually the problem in this particular subject matter we are talking about, leadership? Over to you.
The problem, I've said this before, two things account for what is going on. One, ego. Two, and most importantly, money. What is going on is not going on free of charge. Yaoundé has invested a lot of money to do what is going on. He's not bribing you, he's not bribing me, he's bribing the most intelligent people we will have. The people who are right up there, what the people could have counted as our own intellectuals, academically, with PhDs, who know this history more than I do. But what has happened is that they have gotten married to this criminal junta of national armed robbers. And because they belong to this national junta of armed robbers, they do everything to remain where they are. And I've said this before, you're on the house under two instruments. They give you money, buy you with cash, buy you with a post, or eliminate you physically. And once you are there and you have these people, the people that we ought to listen to, and they are in this court, until they free themselves of this court, we have a long way to go. And let me give a practical example. I hope everybody is following me. I watched Professor Ngole Ngole on Equinox. And what was this man saying? He was trying to defend his positions in this so-called struggle. And he said he went to the University of Denver in the United States. That's where he obtained his PhD. And Denver has produced important people, among them Madeleine Albright, who was the Secretary of State under Bill Clinton. Among them, Condoleezza Rice, who was a very big special advisor to George Bush II. I'm quoting him. He went to that school, had the same PhD that he had. But he has failed. He has failed. A good example, this is our brother, Mr. Ngole Ngole. He came back to Cameroon to work for the government, for the state, and he still takes a salary from the state. Where in Denver University did he learn that the state can pay you to work for the private company? He's a principal of the CPDM school. That's a private thing, being paid by the government, being paid by the taxpayers' money. Could Condoleezza Rice have done that? Never. Could Madeleine Albright, the Secretary of State for Clinton, have done that? No. So what people who are nakedly dishonest, they cannot tell the truth. Why are they doing this? It's simply because they want money and ego. If you go to the village of Ngole Ngole, is there any road there? No. Even just talking about good government. What is there? Zero. There's no water for people to drink there. There's no road on which bicycles can even pass. And here where you see, he's a principal of a CPDM school in Yaoundé. He's sitting there, he has been minister, he has been everything. So we have this court of people. The only thing that would make us, why I enjoy this thing right now is, these guys who are dying, those of us who are leading, giving these lectures, who have never had a dime from the government, we don't lose nothing. That's why your first question was important. Have you ever worked with the government? Have you any position? Zero. You see, the people who are really our problem are our brothers and sisters, and take each of them by name. You trace him or her to an office in Yaoundé. He has a cousin who was a director, a minister. He is trying to maintain this office. That is the problem. They don't know how to tell the truth and shame the devil. As I'm told, part of the system I'm told that, when we joined here one day, Dr. Fonlong, I think I was the Minister of Health, And this man went to the seminary, they were wearing slippers all the time. I was riding his Volkswagen. And I said, what I'm minister is that we're riding in Volkswagen and drove me away. And so, but this guy who had a PhD anyway. So what people, until we dismiss this thing, why are these people doing this? Why is Fontem doing all this? What's Akuro doing all this? What do we need to be relevant? Why must they sit in the front? Is it because they think they have so much knowledge? No. I listened to something, what do you call that guy in Nigeria?
Success.
Success. He made a long audio castigating Ngongo. But he was never assured that I can't give him money. And that's the guy who was the first accused for betraying Sisiko. And he said so. He said in his audio that he had warned Sisiko that they were coming to catch him. So he knew when they were coming for him. You're taking money.
Yeah, many people don't know that La Republique is an elephant that doesn't forget and doesn't have a friend.
They don't forget, they don't forgive.
When he uses you to destroy somebody and the person is destroyed, the next person is you. And the destruction of you is trying to hide evidence. And that's why Success had to run, because it was the time for his own to be sacrificed. He has done that which he did, bringing out Nambere, bringing out the rest of the people, and crooking them and scamming them. And at the end of the day, they were behind him. That's why he's making all those useless messages. I call them useless after betraying his people. Now, our time is getting up, Mr. Barrister, and I want to ask you this last question, which I think I know the answer, but let's let the people know. In your days in West Cameroon and Southern Cameroons, before you cross over to La Republic of Cameroon, I know there could have been some people, but were there so many people at that time who could sell the entire country of Southern Cameroon because of money and position? At that time, if you had what we have today and the caliber of people that you had at that time, were there people who could do what Judas Iscariot did to Judas, as is going on now in this our present generation with the crop of these 23 groups and the other people that are out there?
No, they could not be there because the West Cameroon policy, government policy as a policy. If you read Mr. Foncha's last speech to the combined House of Chiefs and the Parliament in 1961, October 1st, it tells you what they contemplated to be the government. And what is important there is he mentioned the role of chiefs. He said he considered democracy to start from the village, where the chief will be with his people. But where are the chiefs today? They are no longer with the people. Why are they no longer with the people? Everybody is trying to go to the House of Chiefs. Everybody is trying to be a second-class chief. And no one wants to be a first-class chief. Why? Because money goes with it. That takes me to the last point. The chiefs in West Cameroon, if they had to be paid, they were paid for a job done. There was a job definition for a chief. And the salary was not the same. Every chief was essentially a tax collector. You gather your people, you collected taxes, and you paid over to the government. And you were paid for that. There was no flat rate. You were paid based on the number of people you collected taxes from. So nobody could be jealous of his neighbor. If you were the chief of Akum, you had only 10 tax collectors, and the rate was $10 per head, you have $100. The phone amount, if you have 2,000, you have $10 times 2,000. And the figures are right here. I have a book here that enumerates that. I remember in the 1940-something, in my own area, for example, the chiefs were so many. They collected taxes and took to the government official in Manfred. The man who received the highest number of, the highest amount of money for elimination was the father of Fontem. He had 72 pounds for his job, based on the people, the amount of money he brought. The least, who was still also a chief, had 2 pounds. but he was still a chief.
The difference.
The father of Fontem, they all go to bench to dethrone him. In Bamumbu, Mundana area. The highest person who had the largest remuneration was the founder of Bamumbo. What was his pay? He had 27 pounds. The lowest chief there had £1. But they were all chiefs. Everybody had his own village. And so there was no room for you to be jealous of the other. You could not go to replace the other. So that thing could not exist in West Cameroon. If you were a minister, again, I've said this before, you owe your ministerial job to the population that voted you. So if you won the election and you go to the government and became minister of finance, I would lost. I didn't expect to be a minister of finance. If you got there, you were distributing the gains that came in and you were not fair, you'll be thrown out. You no longer be a minister because you know you voted into parliament. So that thing could not exist in West Cameroon. It is not now. That Paul Biya will call sources in Congo and say, okay, I give you 2 million, I give you 10 million. Call my country people. I give you 50 million to go and bring these people. No. That did not work there because there was government accountability. The department accounts check too. And parliament control you. They did what they call commissions of inquiry. They had the GCAM, this and that. All these commissions of inquiry were there. They investigated when wrongdoing was going on, and action was followed it. People were sanctioned for their bad deeds. So in West Cameroon, that could not just happen. It tried to happen, yes, but there were control, there were structures in place to identify you, filter you out, and sanction you. Demote you, send you to prison or something, or remove you from the job. So we got into this mess of a criminal junta of national armed robbers who are accountable to nobody. They set the courts, they dismiss the judges, they transfer them, they do what they want. Nobody is questioning them. And everybody is fighting to go and take the spoils.
Yeah, thank you very much, Barrister. I think I'm telling you, the history is getting more and more interesting. Let me conclude with this. Our time is gone, but let me conclude with this little one, this little finding from you. We discovered that when the government, the interim government that is in place, when it was brought forth from Nigeria, let's not go back to what happened and whether it happened. And then the disorganization of La République du Cameroon that has learned how to kill people by bribing some gullible people and people who want to be where they cannot perform. And it happened that our government was taken as a result of a deceit of one person. The rest of them were picked up. When Dr. Sako came in and took over as acting, some people were out here, they intoxicated the gentleman in prison, and he forgot to know that he is a prisoner and under his captives. Like one of your learned colleagues told us in one of the days that he went there and asked him, did you write this letter? Are you communicating with Ayolo and with your enemies and doing everything to make sure that you sell Ambazonians? He said, yes. Well, let's stop there. He has that ball to answer. Now, what I want to ask you, most of the people that are now against this president of the interim government, Dr. Sako came in, restructured the whole place, put people in place, and put departments in place, of which some of the people who were criminals wanted to go the way of La République du Cameroon. They will send them to one of the departments to resolve a problem. They will boldly get out and go meet another group of people who are as fishy as they are. At the end of the day, they throw it below the carpet, and it went on and went on and went on and went on. But today, most of them have gone out. They still maintain the names of the institutions that were birthed by our president, Dr. Sako. They still maintain the appellations that were birthed by our president, just to confuse things. And now They are talking about a leadership at the home front. Can you tell the Ambazonians how successful the leadership at home front in the midst of the guns of La Republic of Cameroon can succeed to bring us out from this mess, if that is reasonable? Over to you, sir.
This is what people, even those people in the home front, ours is not the first liberation struggle. The idea, the word, a government in exile, who didn't create it. During all struggles, governments are created in exile. The ANC was headquartered in Zambia. The Shah of Iran fled because Ayatollah was somewhere else. So you don't form a government in place because you don't have any security for yourself. First, the government that is occupying you, the occupation government, is not going to allow you to function. How will you function there? So the people who are in the home front fighting, they are not going down the streets of Bamenda, going down the streets of Boya. They are fighting in hiding. They come out on strike and run away. So you want to form a government in exile, a government in Cameroon where the governor will sit in the upstation, throw his stone and then run into the bush? Why are you going to do it? So at the present moment, whoever tells you to form a government, what they call home front, is asking you to go and die. I've said this before. That's a recipe for death.
Yes, he's sending you to
because you cannot
suicide.
operate. It's a trap to kill you.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Field Marshal, the king died. They were looking for him. That's why he was in the bush. But even after he died, he was the king of the BLM. After he died, they took the pride. They were not sure this man is dead. They were looking for his dead body to celebrate. So how would you have set up a government sitting in Menji or in Kumba? So it's not practicable. I've said this before. Right now, we have all this government in exile. But the most important people are the people on the home front because they are the one throwing the stones. They are the one bearing the bullets. They are the one doing this. They are the one doing that. If tomorrow there's an election, if we free ourselves, there's election. You and me who are abroad, how many of us are there? Think we'll go home and overtake the 8 million people who are there? They will vote somebody among themselves. They might vote you. They might vote me just because they like you, because they appreciate you, not because you are not. The power is in the home front. But the strategy is for the leadership to remain somewhere else, where they are sure to survive, where they can do things freely, where they can talk, where they can raise money. Where in Kumba, where in Bamenda, where in Bamsa, we don't raise money to go and put in a credit union and say this is for the founding of, of the struggle. So,
okay, Barrister,
that
thank you
nonsense
very
of,
much. I think our time is really up. Can you just go ahead and give us your concluding statements for today? Not forgetting to tell the people of Amazonia that you are coming back because we need
oh,
more of this history.
okay, thank you very
Over
much.
to you.
I hope people have learned something. I've always said this. All what I've said here, most of what I've said here is documented somewhere.
Definitely, they have learned.
Any of us can get it. In fact, I have about 20 books I read here. They're all books sold on the market. I didn't invent the books. The federal constitution is even online. You can go and look for it. You can Google it and get it. And so I hope people are learning something from us. Again, the idea of this history is to know where we're coming from in order to know where we're heading to. So I hope we have learned something. I hope we can implement some of the ideas. I hope our future leaders will know what pitfalls our grandparents fell in. And then that will make us a better generation to come. We're building for the future. Our children must learn to enjoy this. And our brothers and sisters, don't be compromised anymore. Money is never enough. Even if they give you all the money, you use it, you still need more money. So again, as I said last time, Judas would betray Christ and took money. He didn't even enjoy that money. He died even before Christ died himself. So this poisonous money is not going to help you. Don't say, well, like Socks and Common, my children are here left and right now. Dead men don't have children. When you're dead, you're dead. Where a child remains here is flying a plane, is going to the sun, is going to the moon. It's no longer your child. So gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I hope I've learned something.
Thank you very much once again, Barrister. Thank you, audience. Those who were watching from Kenya and other parts of the world, this is our story. This is our message. Ambazonia, former British Southern Cameroons, was deceived and there was no treaty union formed with them. Everything was done haphazard and suspiciously because they had another plan. The plan of Foncha was to make our nation like Canada and Quebec, and the plan of Ahijo and France was to mix us up and make us slaves, of which we have been for the past 50-something years until 2016. And now we are counting 60-something years because our people are still in slavery. But this one thing is very clear. Most of the people in the diaspora who stood for the liberation of Ambazonia independence, and today they have changed, is because money has changed hands. But in the days of former British Southern Cameroons, West Cameroons, there was a check. You could not do that. We shall be coming back with Barrister to find out how many of the ministers were imprisoned and workers who were disciplined in the days of West Cameroon. That's a topic for next season. Don't miss it, because we are talking about a situation that existed, and this is history. So we will not joke about it, and we must go ahead with it. Meanwhile, today, we want to thank all of you who have been here. And again, those of you on home front, please get it very clear that most of the people that are sponsoring you behind there as their private militias, they have taken a token on your head, and so you are on a suicide mission. So when they are sending you to form a group and become whatever, they are sending you on a suicide mission. We don't want to call names. I told you the purpose of our Amba history is to educate you, is to warn you, is to advise you, and is to correct you. If you fall into that category, you are free. We are not here for propaganda. And so that is it for today on our Amba history. Please don't go away. Stay tuned and listen to more of our programs on this particular channel, ABC Amba TV. And don't forget, at 8 p.m., the Secretary of State for Communication, Dr. Mungwa, will be coming up to brief the Ambazonian people and the people of the world of how Ambazonia is developing in its quest to have their seat in the United Nations as the 55th nation of Ambazonia. And don't forget, on Saturday, there is going to be a defense briefing from the Ambazonian Restoration Forces that are right there on home front, still dealing with deadly blows on Paul Biya and his genocidal government, and they are deceiving you and the whole world that they have won the battle. And don't forget that Paul Biya is a very good puzzle game player, that when Ambazonians shout and shout and shout, and when they want to give Ambazonians what they are asking for, they make sure that they cause confusion between other parts of Ambazonia so as to create a kind of a rift. Right now, they are deceiving the people of Meme County that they are making a road to Ekondo Titi. It's a ploy, it's a lie. You remember the road we cried, and they started from Bafusam and ended somewhere in Babaju. Well, that is the game that they have been playing to keep us in slavery. We have the materials, we have everything to make those things happen to us the way we want it. But as long as they are still staying with us and doing what they are doing, we will continue to be slaves. Thank you very much, ARFs of Bui, for what you did yesterday. And thank you very much, the ARFs of the other counties, for what you have begun doing. Continue doing. God is on your side, and we are taking back our land, like America left Britain under gunpoint and established America in 1776. In 2023, Ambazonia is going to put down their record. God bless you, and don't listen to anything that Paul Biya says. If Paul Biya says he's going for a negotiation, be very careful. Don't clap yet, because that guy is a demon in disguise. If he tells the truth, it means that God has touched him. But when he tells a lie that seemingly looks like a truth, he's just saying it according to the deeds of his father, the devil. But in any case, Jesus reigns in Ambazonia. Reverend Sama, please come in.